Erev Tov to everybody. We want to thank and to wish a Mazal Tov to David and to Esther Fried, who are sponsoring this YouTube very short Dvar Torah. It's in honor of their new grandson, Cain Yirbu, and that you should have a lot of nachas, and also to remember David and Esther, the rule of Bnei Banim Kabanim, that grandchildren are like children. That means one's got also an extra chiyuv. They got an obligation to raise them, just like one's own children. You should have all the nachas and simcha, and also your children should also be healthy. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu and simcha dika, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give the entire family mishalot libchem letovah. The question that, as we are going now into the Parshat Vayakhel and Pekudei, which is next week, an issue that was asked by all the Rishonim, all the Achronim, why the Torah has to repeat 4 times the inyan of the Mishkan. First of all, in Parshat Truma and Tetzaveh, then there's a break of Parshat Kitisa in which there's a debacle of the Chet HaEgel, and then afterwards a repetition, exactly almost the last details in Parshat Vayakhel, again an instruction, and Pekudei, the carrying out of the instruction and the dedication. So why this constant repetition? And in the style of the Yeshivot, many times, as we say, the question is the answer. We learn two reasons, one a philosophical one about Hashem and the Jewish people, and one something that we learn vis-a-vis ourselves and our relationship with other people. So the first philosophical message that we get is that Hashem, we would have expected that after the sin of the Chet HaEgel, whichever way one cuts it, basically 40 days after Matan Torah was such a tragedy, was such a low point of the Jewish people, for the Jewish people. We would have thought that they would never actually would have recovered. We would have thought that even if Hashem would have continued some sort of relationship, that the relationship would be altered. It would never actually basically be the same. And yet, lo and behold, it is unbelievable that everything that Hashem told us to do, especially according to the Ramban, who said that the intention was even before Chet HaEgel that there should be a Mishkan to continue the relationship that was in Har Sinai, and everything in the Mishkan is like sort of a mini Har Sinai. So can you imagine everything that was told to the Jewish people to do in Parshat Truma and Tetzaveh is that its exact same detail is in Vayakhel and Pekudei. Now, as I said, we would have thought that surely after such a sin, that Hashem's relationship would have been altered like a little bit, right? The things that He commanded us to do in Truma and Tetzaveh, somehow they're not exactly the same as in Vayakhel Pekudei, and the thing is that nothing changed. Mamash to the last detail, everything is the same. Nachon, in Parshat Vayakhel and Pekudei, the order is the same. In other words, is different. In Parshat Truma and Tetzaveh, the furniture is mentioned first, and then afterwards the building. And in Vayakhel, it's opposite. The building is mentioned first, and then the furniture. And that I spoke about like a couple of years ago, because once the Jewish people fell, so first of all, one has to create a proper framework, and then afterwards move to the furniture, which is the ideal. So sometimes we can't start when the ideals are broken. We have to do technicalities first and build up towards the ideal. But be that as it may, the fact is that all the details of the ideal remained exactly the same. Nothing changed. And that philosophical message of the Hashem's commitment and never choosing another Am Yisrael, despite everything that happened, that is a source of tremendous optimism and hope always for the Jewish people. And it's correct that it wasn't exactly the same, because if there wasn't the Chet HaEgel, the Jewish people would have been more or less immortal. Now it's not. But I mean, basically, the point of the matter is that Hashem has ensured our survival, and Hashem hasn't swapped the Jewish people for another people. That's the one message. And from that message, the philosophical message about Hashem's commitment to Am Yisrael and the eternal covenant, comes a message for us. And just like we imitate Hashem, that is the basis of our morality. So just as in the case of the Jewish people sending to Hashem, Hashem then commanded all the details of the Mishkan exactly as it was before the sin, so it was after the sin. The same thing if there is altercation, or there is some sort of a breach in the friendship, people's friendship with people who they obviously as their good friends, and sometimes there's a skirmish, sometimes there's a fight, and sometimes that causes that the relationship is never 100% like it was before. It's like only 99%, which is also something which is very great. But what we learned from this repetition, the repetition which is exactly the same to the last detail. So that's also it has to be when we make up, when we appease, when we ask forgiveness from our friends and from our colleagues, that it should be exactly the same way. All the details that there was before the fight, all the details that there were before there was this uneasy confrontation, all that we should be able to wipe it clean, to do tshuva, to mend the relationship, and then to restore it, just like Hashem restored it, to the last detail that our relationship should be afterwards, once a person has done tshuva, once we made up to one another, exactly how it was before things went wrong. That's the great message of hope and of fixing up relationship that we learned from Hashem's relationship with the Jewish people. Shabbat shalom to everybody.